Hello, all you beautiful thinkers and wanderers. Welcome to Think Out Loud with me. I'm Natalie P., and if life has taught me anything, curiosity saves lives, and the best conversations are the ones we don't script. Life's a big, beautiful, messy learning opportunity, and here in my space, well, we let the inside voices out so others can hear, relate, and create with new purpose. This is a space for questions, connection, and those deep, real human conversations that crack open new perspectives. So grab a seat, open your mind and your heart, and let's think out loud together.
And can I say that I forget also, like, because I'm teaching online a lot and I'm
Yeah.
supposed to record things and we'll be into the heart lock-in and we'll be into the space and we'll already get dialogue going and I'm like, shoot, press the record. So it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And in
Well,
a way, it's like Truman Show. Are we really going to record our entire lives? But there's so much value in it. Yes, we are. Oh.
we was the Truman Show. We had to tune into that frequency to get there, right? So there's
Mhm,
some version of that.
mhm,
It's a
mhm,
trip. It's a
mhm,
trip. I was trying to explain
mhm,
to Paul last night, my partner. I was like, I just feel this pulling forward, just like I've taken timelines and like baby to now and put them up, stood them on the spiral, and I'm taking that same thing. I've done so much work there that I'm now like, okay, so then I'm going like this and I'm taking future self and putting her up on the spiral and
mhm,
communicating in this spiral now,
mhm,
which
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
some days I think I'm losing my mind. I'm like antennas are growing out my ears, like my head.
Mhm, mhm.
Back to
Yeah, I hear you.
doubting. Back to doubting. Like, was that a breath I just felt on the back of my, like, yeah, right? I totally, what you were saying earlier, like the doubt pops up. And so,
Mhm, mhm.
okay, so we're gonna get into the soup. Um,
Yeah, there's been like such a dismantling process, I think, of other things and constructed beliefs that are no longer valued, that were like valid, or there's an integration and re-examination of, crystallized beliefs and thought forms that were like, wait a second, if I believe this, then can I still believe that? And where does this all intersect in my reality? I feel like my whole paradigms are just like being crushed and expanded and exploded. And then like when we want to rebuild a house of cards, is it cards that we want to use to rebuild with? No, maybe we use particles and spider webs and we can create from this other space of like this matrix. And yeah, it's infinitely surprising and it's infinitely like uncomfortable and then it's infinitely like euphoric and joyful and exciting.
mhm,
And, like, all of that is existing at the same time, and I find
mhm.
that is, like, just being in and witnessing it, like we talked earlier, like, being in the curiosity of observing the human experiment or our own evolution.
Our
And when
evolution.
we are trying to wake up, when we're trying to be more aware, when we're trying to witness more, we're present and we're, like, moment to moment seeing it as opposed to another part of our being or our habitual patterns that was just kind of unconscious going through motions and things didn't have the carry the same type of gravity. But it's now like there's epiphanies every day. There's
Every
multiple
day.
every
Yes.
minute, and you're like, whoa, okay. Yeah. And it's fun, fractaling and multidimensional and all of it.
Yeah.
And that the doubt can exist there and like, okay, that's there. I'm being with it. Like, where did it come from? Oh, okay, it's this. All right, let me love and integrate that part. And then shame is coming up and like I'm feeling an inner dissonance and I'm wanting to have some approval vanities met. And like, where is that coming from? Oh, okay, can I just be with this and take care of that little girl and maybe call in my future optimal self to help, marry all of that together That's
That's
where
what.
I'm coaching myself through moment to moment. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's bring some folks into this space, and do this episode a little differently. I've already opened it completely different. But I do want to just invite um, you to take the mic and um, lead us into some really beautiful heart space. If you
Mm,
would be so kind, put myself on
mm.
mute and turn the reins over to you.
Oh, Natalie, you're so sweet. Well, we had talked earlier, and I love that you bring in the word reins because horses are definitely part of my blueprint. They've been with me forever. I can't imagine a time that horses were not a part of my life. And through my horse work, I have retreats and opportunities to gather. And in each one, it's really stepping into my own confidence. You know, we talk about doubt as being part of the natural human experience, and we develop capacities and competency. And I certainly bow to so many teachers and mentors, just like you mentioned one of yours before, that really is the connecting point to bring us together. And so my mentors have shared with me practices of mindfulness. And when I share that with others at the beginning of my classes, it just helps us set our hearts and spirits. And you talked about letting go of the mind. It's like letting go of the intellect, but we really want to coordinate things as well with our mind that uses the capacity to speak. And in that, we go into the silence. So I'll invite everyone and all of your listeners, wherever you are right now, if it's safe, you can close your eyes and turn inward, but it's totally not required. We can open our eyes and appreciate the beauty that surrounds us. Even in an interior space, just look at the light and just notice where you're sitting, where your contact points are, either in your chair or your feet on the ground. And then bring your awareness into the heart, your chest area. And imagine that as you're breathing, your breath is flowing in through the heart and out through the heart. Perhaps breathing a little bit deeper and slower than normal. And as you imagine this breath flowing in through the heart and out through the heart, just let each breath soften and start to quiet your mental, emotional, and physical energetics. And then take a moment to invite in all of your non-physical guides and teachers. We talked about the horse nation, honoring the ground on which they stand. I honor the Washoe nation. I'm standing in Washoe territory. All of our ancestors, past, present, and future. A deep bow of reverence for all of those who came before us. All of those other beings to whom our very existence relies upon for nourishment, for livelihood, the way Mother Earth holds us up and supports us. Just deeply, sincerely feel that immense gratitude for all of creation. And then breathe that gratitude in through the heart and out through the heart. And while we have this conversation, anytime that awareness comes and we have that gratitude together as we connect, we can just continue to allow ourselves to be touched in the heart and anchor it by breathing it in through our heart intelligence. and breathing it out. There's a whole bunch of science as to why that's significant. But I'll just ask you now as we step into dialogue with each other again, what does that 2 minutes do to shift your awareness? What are you noticing? You're still muted. I love it. I get to watch your beautiful
Dang
mouth.
it. Dang it in podcast land in real time. Um, it's a really steady wave in my chest. Um, just a nice rocking wave. Um, that is a part of a greater, there's a much greater sense of awareness in my peripheral, like of my own wave, but it's a much larger wave. Mm,
I love that as you're describing, or, we attempt to describe these felt experiences with language, and you also use your hands and
hmm
you've kept your eyes closed. And this is like the yumminess is that we almost don't want to open up to the external visual fascination quite yet, because the internal world is so beautiful,
mm,
because silence is so beautiful, because gratitude and that palpable sense of appreciation is deeply nourishing, satisfying, fulfilling, and joyful. And in a way, it's like, okay, that's it, like case closed. Like that's what we all want to get to in the human experience for everything that we do. We have many different pathways, but we're really seeking is like just to be content in the now.
and that was 2 minutes of song, connection. I hear your voice as a song, and just going with that motion, as my son and I say, of the ocean, just to let
Mm,
your words guide me to trust. I think there's ultimately a trust established that allows me to my heart plugs into you, and I say, yes, feed me. I
mm.
will receive what you're giving to me in your love, from your love, because what you just delivered, Kansas Carradine, I need to introduce you, was
Well,
two minutes. Jeez,
bef-
go ahead.
before you introduce, so one of my most powerful women in my life, she was my doula and midwife, and she says, um, pizzas are delivered, babies are born. And I actually didn't deliver anything, right? I just helped hold
Yeah.
space in the way that so many, like I said, mentors and teachers have guided for me so that you can feel what's inside of you.
hmm
And people have shown me like they're not doing anything. They're just opening us up to be receptive to what's already there
hmm
inside of us. And that's the cool thing. Like when I get around the horses, like I don't have to do anything. I'm facilitating and just holding a container of space.
hmm
I have intentions and I'll hold an energetic in my own simple, you know, humble way.
Yeah.
But the horses are doing it. Nature is doing it. Each person's heart and their unique chemistry as they all come together and align. That's what's doing it. The magic that we don't have words to
Yeah.
describe and we don't have names for.
I
That's what
really
is.
I appreciate it, and and in full disclosure, you're going to have to keep telling me. Yeah, because that's a learning I have to undo, right? But it is a very fun, what I appreciate about what you're sharing is that we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Mm.
And my connection to Kansas Carradine is mine is a you are you there's a filling of energy that happens that illuminates within me. Just it's an illumination that happens within spaces that are safe and trusting. It's like all of a sudden I've got backpacks at my feet, and I'm seeing all the flashlights I can carry, and there's extra tool, like I'm feeling there's something about the creating and helping hold space and be a safe, trusted, brave space that allows me to do my work and
Mm.
to really love, sit in some really yummy love with myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes. Yeah.
And I'm okay with you seeing that because I have, through the energetic connection, that's everything else doesn't matter
Mm.
except for my love. Yeah. Big stuff. Very big stuff.
Yeah, big and beautiful and expansion and then simple, because the simplicity is when you whittle it all down to is we want to feel love. We want to feel
Mhm.
loved. We want to give love. We want to experience like all of the different facets of love. And it's
Mhm.
so much more vast. And when we keep opening to, I would say like that curiosity that we spoke of so much before we even started recording, how much we love, how curiosity has transformed our previous you know, tendency as the human intellect to really judge and compartmentalize and analyze and section and like, okay, this goes here and be that critical thinking has been highly valued and really
Mhm.
exercised. But curiosity,
Mhm.
this is like this new superpower, really,
Mhm.
to just be fascinated by process and
Mhm.
fascinated by I'm living up in the Sierras right now. We just had a big snowstorm, and when really light fluffy snow catches wind and there's light behind it, it creates like this diamond dust
Mhm.
that is so magical, and it seems otherworldly, and it's like etheric, and it's again just like captivating in its beauty. And I think that's what our human experience is very much like, both the feeling world
Yes.
with it, like the frequencies, the vibrations. When you said, like, I was talking and it was like a song, everything
Mhm.
is vibratory. And
Mhm.
oftentimes when I'm sharing um, principles of energetics, song and music, that's the language of the heart. That's the universal language. It's something that everybody can understand. And music and all of the harmonics, or an orchestra that has 72 different instruments all working together and making something so harmonious. That's a wonderful way that we look at as we're experiencing all of these different um, collectives of existence.
Mhm. Mhm. Boy, it's
And
beautiful.
sometimes there's like a tuba and a bass drum, and it's just like, I want the bass. And that's great. And all these different types of music, like not one is better than the other. Some people like jazz, some people like classical, some people like, just world beats or whatever. Like all of it's cool.
Yeah. Have you always been This is such a silly question. Have you
I
always
can't wait.
been Kansas
Wait, wait,
Carradine?
wait. So stop. The funny thing is, like, I have no idea what you're really going to say, but like, I've studied kind of intuition and stuff like that. And my little inner voice, let's guess curious, and we're thinking out loud, is about to say, hell no. In fact, one of I've been reading these books by Father Gregory Boyle, and he works with the Homeboy Industries, and he learned OHN, like LOL, OHN. Oh, hell no.
No.
So what were you going to ask?
Well, it's just funny because it's like, have you always been Kansas Carradine? And it's such a funny question because, you know,
Mm,
I don't remember which book it's in where it just keeps asking you to unpack yourself. The Four Agreements? No, I can't remember. Anyway, um,
Mm. Well, I
down
mean
to,
I mean, I could answer that in a bunch of funny ways is because I think that we like deny ourselves and sometimes as when we're younger, and so we create alternate identities. And when I look at like who I was back then, like, oh my gosh, who was that? But at the same time, in the eternal now, I've always been this, and the
right.
soul maybe has many different, what did somebody call it the other day? Like meat bodies or like meat
Yes.
costumes. And then, so there's the essence of the soul that is timeless and eternal. But when you say, have you always been Kansas Carradine? Well, I was Kansas Ann for a long time, and nobody knew that whole last name thing. Like that's been a whole identity arc of waves and storms and
Hmm.
turbulence and calm waters that I've also navigated through. So yeah, yes and no, the both and.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all in this constant space of evolution, and the now I am, we talked about the beauty of getting closer to 50. For me, I'm 47 and I age myself up and I'm like, cool, yeah, I'm almost 50. Like it's a total trip. And who am I going to be when I'm 60 and 70? I'll be that eternal, changeless self,
Yeah.
but I'll also have all of those other like Pandora boxes that have opened up inside
Yeah.
and outside my
Yeah.
mind's
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah, it is. It's a trip to get to 50, and to look back on a life, a messy, fun, beautiful, hard, glorious, 50 years, and then do some really rock solid start of some work and start to, really gain some um clarity around things, and then lay that clarity and that sense of self and that sense of reclamation and that sense of where your heart and your values and your mind and your spirit all align, and you apply that in the other
Mm,
direction and think, I have 50 more years on this planet.
mm. Right.
What?
Yeah.
At least.
Hmm. And every minute is precious.
And I have that perspective,
Hmm.
right? Like, shoot, I'm taking the lid off.
Mm.
I learned that I can go do and screw it up and make it fail it forward, and that I've learned that. Did I apply it? Not yet. I mean, now, yeah. That's what I
Hmm.
was sharing with you before. Yeah. Like now, publish, publish, publish. You're
Mm.
dang right. Like, what do they call them? The flash mobbing and all that stuff. Like, stand it up, right? Why
Hmm.
wait? Why wait? What was I waiting on? All those things, right, go into effect,
Hmm.
and this beautiful momentum of I went to my son's he ran the 2 mile, this 3,200, excuse me, I shouldn't call it the 2 mile, it's 3,200 meters.
Cool.
And he had a strategy, um and I was so excited to see him. What I noticed first before I ever got there was I had to pay to get in, and I'm 10 years away from my ticket being like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, can we talk about the raise we get when we hit 55 and 60?
Oh my gosh, so true. Yes.
See, I'm going all in everywhere. I hop, like I get it. What, like, this is a rival of a
Hmm.
whole nother level that I can
Hmm.
celebrate. So,
Hmm. Yeah, well, and it's interesting. This is taking us on a different tangent because, like, age, some people have talked to me recently. We weren't living as long when we created a lot of human societal structures, paradigms, and um, habits and traditions. And it was like, wow, you made it to 50, like,
yeah,
bravo, we're gonna give you all this kind of stuff, or even kids who made it to puberty, like, right? This was a big deal. So, when you're married for 20 years, that might have been your entire lifetime.
yeah.
It'd take you up to 40, right?
Hmm.
And that in and itself was like, that's where it was. And then, so I went and did the Gaucho Derby, which is this, horse adventure. And a lot of I found a lot of amazing women, strong women, independent women, like fierce women were down there doing this expedition on horseback in the Patagonia, Santa Cruz region of Argentina. And this one woman sat in front of me where we didn't know each other. There was like 16 people. She was from Texas in her 60s. And she said something like, yeah, I've been married for 35 years. It's way too long. Get out while you can. And we didn't even say hello. And I was just like, interesting. And when we talk about like the universe and things like that, this is like, before I was like, okay, I'm going to edit. Like, I don't really talk about personal things, but I'm actually a year into separation. And that like was spirit talking to me back then. And I was like, whoa, what universe? And that was probably the biggest piece of like navigating through the density of shame. Because what is shame? Is shame like that you stay in this nuclear family forever? Because people applaud you when you have that family of
Mm-hmm.
four and they don't want you. Like they genuinely get sad when they think that that can't be
Mm-hmm.
as lasting, long lasting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's like the both and like, yes, you can have that as a metric of success, and you can also have maturity and say, this is what is right and in alignment for the next stage of soul growth
Mm-hmm.
and get sober
Mm-hmm.
with it and embrace all aspects of it. And I think that's what we're
Mm-hmm.
talking to is like, and there's no one pathway for everybody. There's no one recipe. Like I used to hate baking because I never follow recipes and I cook in the kitchen and I make lots of fantastic things. But baking, I had to follow this recipe.
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh my God, if I don't get it perfect, I'll mess it up. But then after a while, I even learned that I can play with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through skill as opposed to feeling like it's rigid and it's controlling us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Getting curious, like, oh, what if I add a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more baking soda? What's that going to do? Oh, add an extra egg or take it away or do a vegan egg replacer with,
Oh,
chia seeds.
now you're getting fancy. Now you're getting fancy. Well,
Oof.
and I think if I can add to that, from an emotional level, we mistake we mistake curiosity. We mistake there's a fear. We mistake this there's a place in emotion that we mistake for fear. And it shuts us down. And it's it's been it however it has been ingrained in us,
Mm,
right? To don't go there. And it's kind of in the shoulds. I don't know. There's
mm,
right.
mm,
We say don't if you're shoulding all over yourself, then right. But but then there is an element of like that's part of the pull that we shut down to go ask why, to say
mm,
what, right? Before the
mhm,
judgment comes in and shuts us down and says, yeah, you don't want to do that. Like there's that little blip. If we could just
mhm,
reattach ourselves to that little blip of
mhm,
curiosity that says it's okay to ask questions. It's
mhm,
okay to come in with some level of vulnerability and not know what you're doing.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and, I think that we are so conditioned by linear timelines that if we can't, put before and afters in place, um, yeah, we squirm pretty hard, and we're squirming right now on a much bigger level,
mm,
because those labels and those definitions are being challenged in every way, shape, and form. And for me, in my own travels in the last many years, um, the bringing forward of, I think, as we dismantle these things that are happening, that are being questioned, we're pulling forward ancient wisdom, right? That timelines, like there is a growing collective, thread from the back. There's a pulling into this, collective energetic. It's always been there, but it's gaining. I don't know, stickiness it's gaining. What is it gaining? Like, what
Mm.
am I, what am I making you think of when I'm,
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking, I get the image of just a very powerful current
hmm
going over a cliff edge, like a waterfall, like a Niagara Falls, or even bigger, right? And just seeing that momentum, like, and when you get to that right at the edge, and then that fall, it has so much of its own life force within it. And in a way, we're just drawn, like even magnetism and how planets are in orbit with each other. Like some things, we draw them into our orbit really strongly with that magnetization.
hmm
Um, and I think there's something that I wanted to touch on that you talked about. This fear, you know, can touch on emotion. Like we get afraid of just emotion in general. And you asked me, were you always like this? And were you always scared? No. In fact, like I was very I look back at myself, I was like, man, I was so hard. I was, you know, I was a fighter. I was like that tough girl. I got kicked out of school and suspended for fighting, both with boys. Um, and I was like a very aggressive person, which is why I became like a trick rider and doing hard things and like that rodeo. And I had no feelings. Like if you look back and think about things that I felt like, no, emotions were part of it. I wasn't, it was like you fight to survive, was very much that. And so any emotions, especially what we would term as like uncomfortable emotions, discordant emotions or negative emotions, those ones were all like creating just grouped in the fear category. Like, oh my gosh, there's something coming. It's sadness. It's going to be so big. Or it's anxiety. Or oh, it's fear. Oh, it's depression. Or oh, it's anger. All of it. And I look at that now as like through a lot of education and study and mentorship, discipleship, apprenticeship, I should say, that the emotion itself has information. And then starting to decode, like, oh, okay, what is the information here? And then look at it with neutral observation, curiosity, like you mentioned, and just observe as the scientist. Um, the somatic experience. Okay, I'm feeling warmth. Okay, I stopped breathing. I'm feeling actually even more tension up in my head, and then when I start to be with that, befriend it, that expansiveness occurs, or oh, maybe I'm getting touched and I'm feeling like I'm going to cry. All of this I've started to pay attention to more and become less um, fearful of it in general, less terrified. Like, let's just be real. Sometimes emotion was like terrifying. Like, I don't want to go there. It could be overwhelming and take over, and then I'll lose my capacity to fight and defend or please others. And I won't be liked and I won't get the love that we talked about, right? Because it's all about like, we want to be loved. I mentioned the name of Father Gregory Boyle because he's just like a recent, um, amazing, beautiful voice. And he talks about this cherished belonging, working with the marginalized gang members and bringing all of them into this sense, homies and homegirls and homeboys, into that sense of kinship and really cherished belonging that every human being deserves to feel like accepted and ultimately, loved and valued, and that sense of belonging and all of this, right? So, yeah, and then, we get to experience all the other range of like beauty and emotions when we can be with these other ones that want to be cared for, want to be looked at, want to be finally acknowledged when we kind of pushed them away for a couple decades or something, right? So in the beginning, when we start to let off steam off any sort of pressure cooker, it's just like, woo, that's hot. And
hmm
then you can kind of calibrate it, and then it can let off steam in a healthy way, one that's like
hmm
nonviolent, non-threatening, that we can be with it. Or like we look at like energetic, psychosomatic illnesses, right? Like if we're holding those things down, it can manifest in discomfort in our body,
hmm
even if
hmm
they're like holding in a fart and it gives you a stomach ache, like,
Right?
right?
Absolutely.
Um, same type of thing. So how can we, deepen our awareness, deepen our authenticity with what we're experiencing, and really be loving to ourselves and compassionate and just care for. what comes up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I
Yeah.
love about the horses, what they bring into that is I've learned from the horses, and again through a lot of other mentors, and Ariana from Sky Horse Academy out in California was a huge, huge, huge influence and a grandmother in my life. And she's just like been the voice, I think, for a lot of people in the equine healer
Mm-hmm.
modality and world and like earth wisdom. And to see that horses, like, they don't judge. That's why we like to be around them. They might notice emotion, but they don't make up a story about it like humans do. They don't go, oh, well, it's because this and that. They don't go down the rabbit hole and analyze and, create like volumes and volumes of why. Because in a way, the why, what I've learned in both from the horses and from my heart and from those kind of teachers of embodiment is the why almost matters. I don't want to say it's insignificant, but it doesn't matter as much that we can have like a liberated experience kind of without knowing why. And we can have a reprieve from, sadness or darkness or heaviness. And we don't have to know why it came in the first place,
Mm.
right? Yeah. So I love being in the space with the horses because it gets me out of my head. It keeps me into like that natural world, like we just become one with nature. And that's really what we want to do. Like we look around at nature. I was thinking I was devastated by the fires that happened in my
Mm-hmm.
homeland down in Southern California. And I lived in Canada for a long time and I watched the fires,
You watch fires up
rip
there.
through, not just in Canada, but yes, absolutely, but at a distance over the last, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, like all throughout California. Every time something happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like I
Mm-hmm.
feel it
Mm-hmm.
viscerally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think of like not just the animals who are impacted in a negative way that we have immense like pain about, but like how nature, you talked about the eagles, they
Mm-hmm.
just keep flying. The squirrels, they just keep moving forward. All the nature just like it doesn't look back. There's grieving that we've recognized in the animal world.
Mm-hmm.
I watched an incredible film recently about a whale that was carrying its dead calf for hours
Wow.
in this beautiful ritual dance under the ocean that they captured on film, and it was so remarkable. And we know elephants grieve, right? So I'm not devaluing that by any way, but I'm saying that like we can become inspired as well by nature's infinite capacity to just keep looking forward to life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like with that. I mean, I almost want to say with joy,
Mm-hmm.
like the squirrels still look beautiful, the rabbits still look beautiful, the coyote will still look as noble
Mm-hmm.
when it's gazing over a burnt landscape as it will when it was in the one prior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just all of it.
It's a beautiful soup. That seems to be the word I just swimming around with you in. Um, yeah, and that takes, to get to that level. I think so many folks say, yeah, it's so easy to talk about. And the resistance enters the equation, and I'm busy and I'm this and I can't and I'm this and you don't understand, and are you not looking at these headlines? How can and
Mhm.
the where I've come in recent months is this kind of corny, but this theory that I have that I am responsible for the algorithm of love playing out, whether it's online, offline, in this conscience, another, like a shared conscience, whatever the setting is. um that I just had a total freeze of my thought. Did you see it ice up? Wow.
That's okay.
um
I just got stuck on the beauty. It'll come back to you of love. Again, like just bringing it back to that essence of being a broadcast for love. That's what I was hearing you
Mm-hmm.
say. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like a a, a non-negotiable attitude, like I am going to be a stand for love wherever I go.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Yes.
that is
And
beautiful.
where I click, and the click is just a placeholder. It's a word, guys. Just a word. Just play
Mhm.
with me. It's just a word that I've assigned value to. And we've made an agreement around the word. So just be playful with me. I
Mm.
click on Kansas, Carradine as a human. I click on her. I read her work. I consume it, whether it's online or, I watch content. She makes my heart happy.
Mhm.
And so I do more of her and I get more of her. I don't click on stuff that makes my heart hurt. If I do click on it, it's the X because I have a boundary. That doesn't make me an irresponsible human. That makes me I'm honoring what I process in my algorithm and my calling forward into any space is like, yeah, it's the filter of love.
Mm. Well, and when you talk about click, to me, you can create assignment, like you said, to any sound and energy. It's like select, and you
Mm-hmm.
select this
Mm-hmm.
particular thing, and you
It takes
select
action.
another particular thing.
It takes action.
And
My
it's a choice to kind
girlfriend,
of calibrate.
yeah, my girlfriend that I mentioned, this is going to be littered with the before we hit records. But Andy Burgess, my sweet friend, she used to say awareness is the booby prize.
Hmm. Mm.
Now, then it's like, well, I got to do something about it. And inaction is an action. So the
It
pause,
is. And so in that pause that we did at the beginning, this is
yeah,
the like juice of it because
yeah.
it's not about putting our heads in the sand. It's not about disengaging and being like, okay, that's too hard. But we can become aware of when our energy is becoming really like depleted and
Mm-hmm,
compromised by
mm-hmm,
certain environment or content or just energies. Or, and that can be just like, I'm cold outside. I need to put some freaking clothes on. Like it's draining my energy, right?
yeah,
That's our how
yeah,
our environment impacts.
yeah.
Or when we're looking at something, and what I'm hearing you talk about is when you select or when you click on something that rejuvenates you,
Mm-hmm,
inspires you, brings
mm-hmm.
you connected to your joy, that has a measurable effect on your physiology, right?
Absolutely.
So we talk a lot about HeartMath, and HeartMath is an institute of research for how our emotions affect our physiology. They started checking this stuff out like 30 years ago with biofeedback. And so there's a measurable um, cacophony of all kinds of things, like 1,400 different emotions, biochemical reactions start to burst. The heart is also classified. It influences our hormones. It literally opens up our capillaries so we're getting more oxygenation, right? There's all kinds of things taking place. And when you notice that a little bit of a contraction or your somatic awareness starts to go into this other space, not good or bad, just different. And then we can say, oh, I'm seeing this happen. How can I be with this and add the love to it while I'm holding space for something that I really see that I need to continue to look at? And maybe it's to have a sober reality of what's going on, because this isn't about just avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my one of my greatest mentors we have 8 delegates right now with a nonprofit that I work with that are speaking from Chile at the Commission on the Status of Women. Um,
Wow.
and I went to the G20 to represent the Farah Foundation as a delegate. There's many different working groups, and one of them was gender equality and disability. Disability now has its own working group. We're proud to
Wow.
say, as well as integrated health and the digital space and education and all of this, right? So we're bringing heart into it because we don't want to just have this be a concept of like a world that works for everyone. there's been a lot of anger in the field and people that I've worked with, and I certainly just talked about like I was an angry person, and somehow I pushed that away and was like, no, that doesn't exist anymore. Like I'm all love and compassion. And it's like, no, no, no. We need that fire. Do you think that Gandhi or Martin Luther King were not angry? But they channeled it in a certain way that it
Mm-hmm.
created a movement that inspired and created change,
Mm-hmm.
meaningful change. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe that fire that gets ignited, if we're present to it, if we can really listen to the information that's in it, it can inspire us to do the appropriate actions that
Mm-hmm.
really unite um, for what we care about and
Absolutely.
create, harmony for everyone. And what we were talking about in again at the G20 level, the C20 is specifically getting all the civil organizations, all of the nonprofits, all of the grassroots um, charities and foundations, that aren't even established charities, but these are the people on the ground. And it's more about them talking to each other about best practices and things that are working, getting inspired by other humans. You know, the main piece about it is also to really remove the bias that we might have that can interfere with our ability to listen
Mm.
and just really hear each other. So before we started this call, I opened up a book called Atlas of the Heart by Brene
Yes.
Brown. It's a
Love
dope
it.
read.
Yep. Yep.
And I open it kind of like tarot card or something, right? I
Nice.
open it
Yeah.
like, your I Ching. There's all different
Yeah.
ways to okay, universe, say something. And this is what it read, and now it feels appropriate to read it. It says, we need to dispel the myth that empathy is walking in someone else's shoes rather than walking in your shoes. I need to learn to listen to the story you tell about what it's like in your shoes and believe you, even when it doesn't match my experiences. And believe you, even when it doesn't match my experiences. And so that I think is what we're talking to here is like the both and, like the being with
Mm-hmm.
this complexity, this
Mm-hmm.
diversity that's all around. Like we want to embrace all these different cultures and all these different mindsets. And it's hard sometimes, like, whoa, that's
Mm-hmm.
really weird. Okay, it's not really my thing, but all right.
Right.
And then we stretch and we open our heart's capacity to just be curious instead of
Mm-hmm.
being judgmental.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that perspective. And I think that there more and more this good work, a willingness to hear this. And I also want to call out that fear for women, especially highly sensitive women, anger is the word I wanted to use. Um, ha- and different I don't mean to categorize, but anger is an emotion. I think that yes, it has so much packed into it that perhaps culturally you haven't been able to express, and knowing what to do with that voice, that
Hmm.
that voice, your voice, that a lifetime of perhaps um, suppressing. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's not going to happen overnight. Be curious about what the potential is, what you're saying in that emotion. You've been taught to keep all those motions just right, but yeah, I just want to emphasize that again and again
I'm
and
so
again.
glad. I'm so glad you said that. Yes. Because, I might sound like, oh, I've got this whole thing down. And, how many times have I felt that tightness in my throat recently, like in the last, week, 7 days, month? Like how many times like, is it already March, like
It's
spring equinox of
yeah,
2025?
yeah.
And then I have been like totally debilitated and lost my voice and in like the throes of emotion and like deeply like really can I grow into accepting myself or what this energy is and like feeling pain and shame and anger and all of it. So yes, we're still in that. It's such a process. We're still
Mm-hmm,
in that
mm-hmm,
journey.
mm-hmm,
And it it's so nonlinear and
mm-hmm,
it doesn't like somebody brought up this point of Kairos and Chronos time.
Mm-hmm.
Chronos being in chronological, right? It unfolds, and Kairos being like the ripening, like how long it takes fruit to ripen or a seed to germinate. But it's really like that natural sense of knowing
Mm-hmm.
intuitively when is the moment to say something, like now,
Mm-hmm.
right? We see that in parenting. Like we have this all-knowing eye, and then sometime we'll say things to our kid and sprinkle little things, but we won't say all of it. Like it's case age appropriate. And
Ah,
so I
yeah.
bring in that piece is like we're all in that ripening thing, and it's like birth, okay? Like I gave birth to two women, beautiful women now. One young woman, one older young woman. And the process of giving birth, right? Like being patient through that. Like, who knows when it's going to start? Who knows how long it's going to take? Who knows how hard it's going to feel? Like, I went to a birth class and I've like, broken bones and been through like racks with horses and consider myself like I have a high pain tolerance. And we hold ice in our hand and they're like, oh, can you deal with this? And what do you think the pain is going to be like when you're in your meditation? Imagine like the pain from 0 to 10. Where is it at? And I was like, I'm at like a 4. And hell no, was I at a 4 when I was in the throes of giving birth and let out like the textbook scream? I was in so much pain. I had both of my kids at home. Okay. I had midwife. I love midwives. I wanted to be a midwife because I became so passionate about that women's wisdom.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a medical professional. That wasn't going to be part of my blueprint and destiny. But I have so much respect for it. And I learned so much through the process of birthing two girls. And it wasn't textbook. Like everybody who wants to go into having like a natural childbirth, and sometimes different things happen. Like everyone says, oh, you shouldn't have your feet up in stirrups and don't do it on your back. I gave birth to both my girls on my back,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's just what
Yeah.
happened for me.
Yeah.
But the process of childbirth
Yeah.
and also carrying, like to split yourself in two is just the most radical thing you can do if you're an Ani DeFranco fan. That's how she put it into words. So we create this other being and we release it and split yourself into two, right? And that process of, bringing another soul into form and giving birth is one of the only like truly organic things, the process of birthing and dying, that humans can't synthesize.
Mm-hmm.
As
Mm-hmm.
much as we're still like trying to get around and intervene and stuff, you can like manipulate, but you can't synthesize
Mm-hmm.
those two
Mm-hmm.
thresholds of human experience.
Right.
And I think, I use that analogy a lot as like we are all as consciousness, we are all as a society, we're all as, genders, as, humans, and going through this birth canal. We're going through
Yes.
a birthing process. And nobody knows what the heck is, how long it's going to take, what it's going to look at on the other side. I mean, I get information all the time like, wow, these next 2 years, mind blowing. I have a 19-year-old and a soon to be 16-year-old, and I'm almost 50, and I'm just like, woohoo, hold on tight. Like, this is fascinating. We're on this ride. And again, like I couldn't do it without the horses. I couldn't do it without so many amazing, inspiring women. And what I've learned about the heart. And I'm gonna say it again, what we said before we pressed record. We were talking about, like this idea of like I have this identity of Circus Cowgirl, and that was just kind of like a nickname that I kind of used, and it was like, it kind of fits. I grew up in the rodeo arena as a trick rider and acrobatic stunt rider. Never did a rodeo after I graduated high school. That was just like I kind of fell into it living on a horse ranch. Learned a lot about Western values and traditions and the energy of like intention, mindfulness, partnering with nature. But then there were some other things that I'm like, yeah, I don't really need to have that um, armoring. I don't need to carry that with me anymore. Sometimes we put on an armor, that's appropriate, but the like I feel no pain, like I'm just gonna muscle through it, like
Mm-hmm.
and trick
Mm-hmm.
ride on a broken ankle with painkillers. Like,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
I'm
No.
not gonna do
No more
that.
of that. No.
Yeah. And so then I came into the circus world and it was like, oh my gosh, look at all these amazing, beautiful, dynamic, complex creatives. and all of their craft that they do. And most of us are refugees from some part of the natural society that just we didn't fit in, right? That you can like join circus. And I've been in the corporate circus, and I've also been with like real deep traditional, like seventh generation circus families. Um, and so that's where that came from. And then now it's like, who are you, Kansas? What the heck are you doing? Like, oh, I ride horses and I kind of do this stuff. And, you know, I spent and dedicated the last better part of a couple decades raising kids and focusing on like my own self-development. How can I be a better human? How can I be a better mother for them? And with that, I was introduced to HeartMath, and it was a way for me to basically heal my trauma um, since, the early 2000s, before trauma was even a common
Yeah.
buzzword
Yep.
and hashtag. I was realizing that I had a lot, in fact, you
Right.
know, and was like, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I still be functional for my family and for myself and do my work and, making post-traumatic stress turn into post-traumatic growth. And HeartMath helped me with that and a lot of other things. It's like an add-on. Like there's so
Mm-hmm.
many parts of our healing journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm passionate about that because I love a lot of the languaging. And I think, hiding, like many people had a stigma with their own emotional
Yep.
well-being and
Yep.
if you've dealt with depression or talking about mental health and whatnot, um, you didn't talk about it for so long. And so now it's like, oh, okay, we can. Great. And guess what, everybody? This is one of the things that I use that helped me become a stable, human being and nervous
Mm-hmm.
system.
Mm-hmm.
This was
Mm-hmm.
something that helped me stabilize my nervous system. And here's come of the science around it. And I get really cool. Like I didn't get a degree and I'm not like super intellectual. Like a lot of times I listen to your, recordings and podcasts. I was like, wow, these people are really smart. I not, I feel sometimes like I live in this intuitive domain. Like I can't make a business plan. Like I'm way too messy for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I just follow a lot of like the breadcrumbs on the trail and follow that flow like a river.
Yeah.
And HeartMath has been part of it and other things that I add in and add on. And so that's kind of like this arc that's taken me now to like this trick rider who ended up at the G20,
Really?
right? Like, yeah, that whole
He's
G20 thing, like,
there.
it's crazy.
You're what? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, your nickname is what? Like that,
right.
yeah, like where, I mean, that is fully intent is always working. Yeah. And are you the different um than the little girl? Would you ever imagine as the little girl back, the feisty getting kicked out of school and fighting with boys and that you'd be, where you're at today? You knew, but you didn't know. And now you're the same girl. You're the same feisty spirit, and yeah, you found a beautiful expression of your love. I
Mm.
think it's an absolutely stunning expression of love. Um, I've been visiting this entire time with Kansas Carradine. And it's uh, it's been epic. I'm going to use that word. Um, I'm going to land this little adorable plane that we've been sharing for a really fun little ride. Um, Heart math research says that our hearts don't just beat, they broadcast.
Mm.
And therefore, our emotions don't stay inside of us, right? They're radiating out into the world and they affect
Mhm.
everything around us. We also know that if I, Natalie Peterson, can shift my own well being, what happens, and Kansas can shift her own well being and her coherence. Um, what happens if more of us start tuning in? The global ramifications of heart math are already well in progress. They're absolutely awe-inspiring to just be an observer of HeartMath research, HeartMath, all of it. I just I'm it's a beautiful, beautiful effort that is being put behind just the power of our own energies. And it
Mm,
is next level. It's leading thought, next level leading thought.
mm.
For listeners who are like curious but don't like, where they're like, y'all have been on the woo scale, like on the end of it where I don't really care to go. Um, can you like what's one simple, we opened with one where you called us in. What's a simple heart math practice that I could do on my own today to,
Mhm.
that's a few 10 seconds, or just like give me something that I could walk away and shift with. Give me a subtle
Totally.
shift.
Sweet. Yeah, well, we did it at the beginning, and there's what you're talking about is like coherence, right? So
Hmm.
coherence is a synchronization. When we feel like we're in sync, there's like a somatic awareness, there's like um a visceral experience. We're like, ah, okay, I feel like I'm in sync. And life will bring us into sync. When we look at pictures of our loved ones, when we play with our animals, watch a funny movie, you talk about it like working with I can't remember her name, your beautiful new assistant, and Miss A, Miss I.
Hi.
Yeah, Miss I, your AI assistant. So anything that really helps us tap into that inner connection, that flow state is what coherence is. And like you mentioned, the heart is an electromagnetic organ. And just like a radio can, broadcast and receive, we're always broadcasting and receiving. And each station or each heart frequency has like this unique energetic fingerprint. It's like a key signature that is a little bit, different. So we can tune ourselves to different things. And it's simple practice is what we started with, was this just heart focused breathing. And sometimes that's enough, because what it does is it shifts us out of like a triggered response or like a highly reactive state, or even like, oh, I'm really feeling like brought down by this. That down is when we kind of move past the parasympathetic rest and digest and kind of get stuck into um, like a freeze state, right? And so just by focusing your attention on the heart or chest area and imagining that your breath is flowing in through the heart and out through the heart. It's a simple and easy practice that you can do while you're in conversation. I do it while I'm riding horses. I do it before I'm about to step into another a pen or arena or environment, or before a phone call. Because what it does is it helps you come into like get your brain, heart in sync, helps you align your nervous system. And then from there, sometimes you just connect to what you care about. Like, what is your motivation? What is your meaning? What is your intention for being here? Okay, I love being a voice for women. Awesome. Sweet. Then breathe in what you love. Breathe in that
Mm,
gratitude. And that's what we're doing, is we're just like amplifying that level of coherence. And then you can carry that into the battlefield. You can carry that into the playing field, into
hmm.
whatever environment you're going into, you're
Hmm.
going to be facing, because we are all warriors on many different levels. Like you might have your battles in the kitchen or in nursery school, or actually, as a frontline healthcare worker, right?
Hmm.
Working in
Hmm.
hospitals and healthcare, or in the courtroom, like wherever, on the streets, and just making sure people are getting food,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
we're going to be constantly, life just keeps giving us all of this richness. And I think that all of the things that we've talked about here, I just hope that they continue to amplify, these ideas can continue to ignite and share.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that that is the idea behind thinking out loud together in spaces where people can listen, is that own display of love. Right. How many different ways can we, for me, you are as a woman sitting across from me, a representation of someone that I admire that's working actively, being who she what is, and being in love and in line, and seeing the mess and listening to, because the story around the mess and our ability, you and I, to talk about it is a
Mm,
gift. That's a gift.
mm,
Not everybody has a voice
mm,
yet.
mm.
And
Yeah.
so, what feel like has threaded through this too is like this, the story that we weave together, and
Mm,
you touched on it earlier. That's justice to me, that there is a hearing, there's a level of hearing that is a nodding, right? And then there's the big step of understanding, which I think is a wonderful destination, or not. It's not even a destination, it's kind of a place of arrival, but there's a step in between of learning, and
mhm,
and that open-minded, open heart. And when we have conversations like this where we can just go sit and listen in that space between hearing and understand, we can just go learn about things
mhm,
and then decide if they're a part of our cocktail or not, if they're a part of our algorithm or not. They're still out there. They'll always be out there. We can come back to them, right? The the rigidity of, the right and wrong, um, goodbye, right?
mhm,
Never it like the rigidity of structure, the do we need structure? Absolutely. Do law,
mm,
we need agreements to be on this
mhm,
planet together and to operate in beautiful heart. We need to be able to practice those agreements with trust and all of
mhm,
that. Um, our beautiful, um, messy selves. I think if if everybody listening, um, you know, like the world can, well, before I go there, first I want to say
mhm,
thank you, but I want to say thank
mhm.
you. I want to say thank you for bringing you, for playing with me. I did this in a completely opposite way. I'll figure out how to frickin' introduce you somewhere else. And then I want to say thank you for just representing the magic, that's my word, because what I see in magic, I see science as magic, and I
Mhm,
see all of it as just like, I use magic to say that's the curiosity part of it. It's fascinating to me and I love it.
mm,
And thank you for bringing that and being
mhm,
so passionate about what you do, because then the trust factor is there. And so do I take everything that you say as Bible, gospel of sacred, I'm out of here with all of it? No, but you've lit a fire under me. Like, I knew stuff about HeartMath. I have experience with it. I have experience with horses. Where do I need to lean in now? Like, it refreshes stuff, right? So thank you.
mm, mhm,
And then thank you for bringing the horses in, and honoring that request,
mhm,
because they are incredible beings on this planet, and they are teachers in their own way. And I want to encourage people, yeah, uh, to open your mind to animals, as your partners, nature, trees, plants, all living beings as partners in this big, huge journey. They
mhm,
make amazing traveling partners. They make
mhm,
amazing, like, commentary. They will talk to you in ways that you cannot even imagine and help you learn about being human in everything that they do, right?
mhm. Totally. Yeah, and I'm gonna touch on again too, it's not just obviously horses or dogs or
No.
domesticated, like the ones that we're pretty Eurocentric, so we tend to lean to the apples and oranges and bananas that we're familiar with. But in other parts of the world, it's,
Yes.
elephants and whales or dolphins or, jaguars. And at the same time, it can be butterflies and insects and dragonflies and all of that. So, you can have, and you don't even have to be in physical proximity. That's another thing that I've really learned. So anyone who feels like, oh, I can't get to nature, I'm feeling crushed because I live in this big, concrete jungle or city. No, we can still have the beauty of calling in those energies because really they exist on a vibrational level. So they're it's like all access pass all the time
Yeah.
for everyone. No VIP access required, like, no special use permit.
No. You go lay down face first in your front yard and get after it.
Mhm. Yeah. Being able I mean, I traveled in a lot of, like, really urban, dense places around Asia and stuff, and wherever we could find a little, bench or tree or stone and,
Yeah.
even appreciating, like, dandelions that'll push through concrete,
Oh yeah.
and they're just so fierce, and they're not looking around like, "What the hell? I'm
Mm,
just reaching for the sun."
that's
They're
yeah.
just reaching, constantly reaching.
Through concrete and people walking over me and pouring
Yeah.
shit on me. Well,
And weeds can be beautiful
they are, in fact, and
and
dandelions.
medicinal.
I have a particular affinity for dandelions. Well, the like here's the deal. The world can look like a dump. It can feel like a dumpster fire.
Mm,
It looks like one, it smells like one, and it's tempting as hell to pile on with worry, with doubt, and very low frequency. It's tempting as hell, and it takes work, online, offline, in your heart. Keeping your footing in love. That is it's paramount to all of this, and that's where the real magic happens. And so I hope folks, until next time, will stay curious and stay human, and to keep thinking out loud with me. Thank you, Kansas Carradine, for being my guest here today.
awesome. Thanks, Natalie. It was a pleasure.